Marcus Chin adjusted his worn tactical vest as he stepped onto the observation deck of the Nexus station. The massive space hub buzzed with activity from dozens of alien species, their chatter creating a symphony of foreign languages and mechanical translations. He'd been traveling for 3 months now, jumping from system to system, always one step ahead of his pursuers. The Kethvar hunting party had been tracking him across 7 star systems. They were notorious throughout the galaxy for their relentless pursuit of prey, treating sapient beings like trophies to be collected. Their reptilian forms moved with predatory grace through the crowds, their scaled hides gleaming under the station's artificial lighting. Most beings gave them a wide berth, fear evident in their hurried movements. Marcus had encountered them first on the mining colony of Kepler 442b. He'd been working as a security consultant, helping the colonists defend against pirate raids. The Kethvar had arrived claiming territorial rights over the system, demanding tribute in the form of the colony's children for their hunting rituals. When Marcus had stood against them, they'd laughed at the lone human's defiance. Such a small creature, their leader, Asikatar, had hissed through his translator. "We shall enjoy the hunt." But Marcus had surprised them. Instead of running or cowering like their usual prey, he'd systematically disabled their weapon systems and forced them to retreat. The humiliation had turned their casual interest into burning obsession. Now they pursued him not just for sport, but for revenge. The station's central plaza stretched before him, filled with merchants hawking exotic goods and travelers sharing tales from distant worlds. Marcus moved through the crowd with practiced ease, his human appearance drawing little attention among the diverse gathering. Most species here knew humans only by reputation, newcomers to the galactic community who'd earned grudging respect for their technological adaptability and stubborn refusal to be intimidated. A soft chime from his communication device made him pause. The message was brief but expected: Nexus Station, Docking Bay 94. Come alone. Katar was here. Marcus made his way to the designated meeting point, his footsteps echoing in the quieter commercial district. Docking Bay 94 was primarily used for maintenance vessels, its usual emptiness making it perfect for private conversations. As he approached, he could see the imposing figure of Katar waiting in the shadows, flanked by 2 of his hunting companions. The Kethvar leader emerged into the light, his 7-foot frame casting long shadows across the metal deck plating. His scales were a deep emerald green, marked with ritual scars that spoke of countless successful hunts. Cold yellow eyes fixed on Marcus with predatory intensity. Human, Katar's voice carried the familiar contempt. "You have led us on quite the chase. But every hunt must come to an end." Marcus stepped forward, showing no fear despite being outnumbered. "I'm here. What do you want?" "What we have always wanted," Katar replied, his companions moving to flank Marcus. "The thrill of the hunt. You denied us our prize on Kepler 442b, but you merely delayed the inevitable." The hunting party had grown since their last encounter. What had started as 3 Kethvar had expanded to nearly a dozen, all seasoned hunters with impressive kill counts. They'd brought additional equipment too: energy nets, paralysis darts, and tracking devices designed to ensure their prey couldn't escape. "We have studied you, human," one of the companions spoke up, his voice carrying an electronic hiss. "Your species is new to the galaxy, but you have already earned a reputation for unpredictability. This makes you valuable prey." Marcus noticed the subtle positioning of the hunters around him. They were preparing for a capture, not a kill. The Kethvar preferred their hunts to be sporting events, releasing their prey on remote worlds before pursuing them for days or weeks until the inevitable conclusion. "We will give you a traditional head start," Katar announced. 24 standard hours on Zirian Prime. The planet has diverse terrain: forests, mountains, oceans. You may choose your ground. "And if I refuse?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. Katar's laugh was a cold, rattling sound. "Then, we take you now and the hunt begins immediately. The choice is yours, but the outcome remains the same." The other hunters shifted slightly, hands moving closer to their weapons. The threat was clear, but Marcus had expected this confrontation. For months he'd been preparing, learning everything he could about Kethvar hunting practices and their preferred prey worlds. Before I decide, Marcus said, his voice calm despite the tension, I'm curious about something. How many hunts have you conducted, Esikatar? The question seemed to amuse the alien leader. I have taken 437 trophies across my lifetime. Beings from 63 different species. You would be my first human. Impressive numbers, Marcus acknowledged. And, you've never failed to catch your prey? Never, Esikatar's pride was evident in his tone. The Kethvar are the apex predators of this galaxy. No prey escapes us once marked for the hunt. Marcus nodded slowly, as if considering this information. Around them, the docking bay remained empty except for a few maintenance drones going about their automated routines. The conversation was being conducted in standard galactic common, but he suspected the hunters had translator implants that allowed them to understand his meaning regardless of language. Tell me, Marcus continued, in all those hunts, how many of your prey fought back? The question clearly puzzled Esikatar. Fought back? Prey does not fight the hunter. Prey runs, hides, pleads for mercy. That is the natural order. I see, Marcus said. So you've never actually hunted a predator. A ripple of unease passed through the hunting party. The concept seemed foreign to them, as if the idea of prey becoming hunter had never occurred to their species. Esikatar's eyes narrowed. What are you suggesting, human? Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. I'm suggesting that you've spent so long hunting frightened civilians and peaceful species that you've forgotten what real danger looks like. You dare insult the Kethvar, one of the companions snarled, reaching for his weapon. No insult, Marcus replied calmly. Just an observation. You see, there's something you should know about humans before you make your final decision. Esikatar gestured for his companion to stand down, clearly intrigued despite himself. Speak. We don't just fight when cornered, Marcus explained. We hunt our hunters. It's been our way since we lived in caves and chased predators with sharpened sticks. When something threatens us, we don't just run. We learn. We adapt. We come back stronger. The Kethvar leader's laugh was less confident now. Brave words from prey about to be taken. Marcus reached into his jacket, moving slowly to avoid triggering a violent response. He withdrew a small datapad and placed it on the nearby maintenance console. These are the files on the other hunting parties your species has sent after humans in the past year, he said. 23 different groups. Would you like to know what happened to them? Esikatar approached the console cautiously, his eyes never leaving Marcus. The datapad displayed a series of incident reports, all marked with Kethvar identification codes. Impossible, Esikatar whispered after reviewing the files. The Detmore pack on Rigel 7, Marcus continued. Found dead in their own ship, killed with their own weapons. The Velkar brothers on New Centauri, discovered scattered across 3 star systems. The entire HFY hunting clan on Tau Ceti, their vessel programmed to fly directly into their homeworld star. Each revelation hit the hunting party like a physical blow. The Kethvar had always believed themselves the galaxy's premier predators, but the data was undeniable. How? One of the companions asked, his voice barely a whisper. Marcus picked up the datapad and tucked it back into his jacket. Because you've been hunting the wrong species. You've been targeting humans who were just trying to live their lives peacefully. Colonists, merchants, researchers. But every time you take one of us, the rest of us learn something new about how you operate. Esikatar's scales had shifted to a darker shade, a sign of distress among his species. You lie. The Kethvar were, Marcus interrupted. You were apex predators when you hunted creatures that had never encountered your kind before. But, humans? We've been dealing with predators since before we left our home world. We know how to turn the hunter into the hunted. The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Around them, the docking bay's automated systems continued their work, oblivious to the tension building between the beings present. So here's my counteroffer, Marcus said, his voice carrying a new edge. You can leave now. Go back to hunting whatever harmless species you prefer, and we'll call it even. Or you can proceed with your hunt and discover exactly why 23 other Kethvar hunting parties have gone missing. Esikatar exchanged glances with his companions, uncertainty creeping into their predatory confidence for the first time. You would threaten us? Esikatar asked, though his tone lacked its earlier arrogance. Not a threat, Marcus replied. A choice. The same choice you've given countless others, except this time the prey knows exactly what you are. The standoff continued for several long moments, neither side willing to make the first move. Finally, Esikatar stepped back, his hand moving to his communication device. The hunt proceeds as planned, he announced. Zirian Prime. 24 hours. Marcus nodded, having expected this response. Pride was a powerful force among the Kethvar, and backing down from a human would be seen as unacceptable weakness. Your choice, Marcus said. But, remember, I tried to warn you. As the hunting party departed, their footsteps echoing through the empty docking bay, Marcus remained motionless. He was already thinking ahead to Zirian Prime, mentally cataloging everything he knew about the planet's terrain and ecosystem. The Kethvar believed they were setting the terms for a traditional hunt. What they didn't realize was that Marcus had been preparing for this moment since their first encounter. Every detail about their tactics, their technology, and their psychology had been carefully studied and analyzed. They thought they were hunting a lone human. In reality, they were walking into a trap that had been months in the making. The hunt was indeed about to begin, but not in the way the Kethvar expected. Zirian Prime's surface was a patchwork of biomes that had made it popular among hunters throughout the galaxy. Dense forests gave way to rocky highlands, which descended into vast wetlands before reaching crystalline coastlines. The planet's 3 moons created complex tidal patterns and unusual lighting conditions that could disorient unfamiliar visitors. Marcus touched down in the northern forests 23 hours and 47 minutes after leaving Nexus Station. The Kethvar vessel had followed at a discreet distance, just as he'd expected. They would wait for the full 24 hours to expire before beginning their pursuit, confident in their ability to track any prey across the diverse terrain. The landing site he'd chosen appeared random to outside observers, a small clearing surrounded by dense vegetation with no obvious tactical advantages. In reality, Marcus had studied satellite imagery of this location for weeks, identifying specific features that would serve his purposes. He began moving immediately upon landing, not toward the deeper forest as most prey would, but toward a series of rocky outcroppings 3 kilometers south. His backpack contained carefully selected equipment, climbing gear, basic survival supplies, and several items that would seem innocuous to anyone scanning for weapons. The Kethvar monitoring equipment would track his movement for the first few hours, giving them confidence in their ability to predict his route. Marcus made sure to leave clear signs of his passage: broken branches, disturbed soil, even a few drops of blood from a deliberately inflicted minor cut. He wanted them to feel certain of their tracking abilities. As the local sun reached its zenith, Marcus heard the distinctive whine of Kethvar atmospheric craft entering the planet's airspace. The hunt had officially begun. He could imagine Esikatar and his companions studying their tracking displays, discussing strategies and betting on how long their prey would survive. They were probably expecting 3 to 5 days of pursuit, followed by a spectacular final confrontation. The Kethvar preferred their hunts to have dramatic conclusions, often recording the final moments for later entertainment. Marcus reached the rocky outcropping as planned and began climbing. The Kethvar would interpret this as a desperate attempt to reach high ground, a common but ultimately futile strategy among prey species. They would take their time approaching, savoring the anticipation of cornering him on the cliff face. Instead, Marcus used the climb to access a hidden cave system he'd identified through geological surveys. The entrance was concealed behind a curtain of native vines and was too narrow for the larger Kethvar frames to navigate easily. Inside, the cave system extended for several kilometers underground, connecting to multiple surface exits. More importantly, the caves contained deposits of magnetized iron ore that would interfere with tracking equipment. For the next several hours, Marcus would be effectively invisible to their sensors. He moved through the underground passages with practiced efficiency, following a route he'd memorized from the geological data. His destination was a series of natural chambers located directly beneath the Kethvar landing site. If their behavior patterns held true to form, They would establish a base camp near their ship while sending out hunting parties to track him. The caves amplified every sound, but Marcus had learned to move silently through months of preparation. Each footstep was carefully placed, each breath controlled. Above him, he could hear the distant vibrations of HFY aircraft conducting search patterns over the forest canopy. 3 hours into the hunt, Marcus reached his intended position. A narrow shaft led upward to a concealed observation point that would allow him to monitor the alien hunting party without being detected. He settled in to wait, knowing that patience was one of humanity's greatest advantages in this situation. The HFY were accustomed to prey that panicked, made mistakes, and gradually wore themselves down through fear and exhaustion. They had never dealt with a target that treated the hunt as a military operation rather than a desperate flight for survival. Through his observation point, Marcus watched as the hunting party set up their base camp with typical HFY efficiency. HFY directed his companions in establishing perimeter sensors and communication arrays while studying tracking data on portable displays. Their movements showed the confidence of predators who had never experienced failure. "Target has gone to ground in the mineral deposits," one of the hunters reported. "Tracking is intermittent, but we have his last known position." HFY examined the data with satisfaction. Clever for prey, but ultimately pointless. The mineral interference will fade as he moves, and there are only so many exit points from that cave system. "Should we pursue immediately?" another hunter asked. "No," HFY replied. "Let him exhaust himself navigating the underground passages. We will position ourselves at each exit and wait for him to emerge. Like all prey, he will eventually make a mistake." Marcus smiled grimly as he listened to their discussion through the cave's acoustic properties. Their strategy was exactly what he'd predicted, and they were positioning themselves precisely where he needed them to be. Over the next several hours, the hunting party spread out to cover the cave system's known exits. They established observation posts and prepared capture equipment, confident that their prey was trapped underground with limited options for escape. What they didn't know was that Marcus had spent weeks studying not just the planet's geography, but also the specific behavioral patterns of HFY hunting parties. Their tactics were ritualized, following traditions that had remained unchanged for centuries. This predictability was their greatest weakness. As night fell on Zirian Prime, the planet's 3 moons cast an eerie glow over the landscape. Marcus began moving again, but not toward any of the cave exits the hunters were monitoring. Instead, he followed a narrower passage that led to an underwater opening in a nearby lake. The geological surveys had identified this aquatic exit, but it was too small and dangerous for most species to attempt. The passage flooded completely at high tide and required underwater navigation for over 50 meters. For the HFY, with their heavy frames and limited swimming ability, it would be impossible. For a human who had spent months preparing and training, it was challenging but manageable. Marcus sealed his equipment in waterproof containers and began the underwater traverse. The cold lake water was shockingly clear, illuminated by bioluminescent organisms that created an otherworldly light show around him. His lungs burned as he navigated the submerged tunnel, but his training held, and he emerged silently on the far side of the lake. Now he was behind the hunting party's perimeter, with all of their attention focused on cave exits several kilometers away. It was time to begin the real hunt. Marcus made his way through the forest toward the nearest HFY observation post. The hunter stationed there was a younger member of the pack, probably on his first major hunt. He sat alert but comfortable, confident in his technological advantages and the safety provided by his companions' positions. The approach required over an hour of careful movement through dense undergrowth. Marcus used every technique he'd learned from human military training and adapted it for alien prey. The HFY's senses were different from human ones, better hearing and smell, but poorer night vision and less spatial awareness. When Marcus was within striking distance, he paused to study his target. The HFY hunter was armed with an energy rifle and wearing what appeared to be light armor. Communication equipment connected him to the rest of the hunting party, and proximity sensors would alert him to movement within a 30-meter radius. All of these advantages assumed a conventional attack. Marcus had something different in mind. From his backpack, he withdrew what appeared to be a simple camping mirror. In reality, it was a precisely calibrated reflector designed to focus Xerion Prime's triple moonlight into a concentrated beam. The planet's unique lunar configuration created conditions perfect for this application, something the geological surveys had noted but the Kethvar had overlooked. Marcus positioned the mirror carefully, angling it to catch the light from all three moons simultaneously. The resulting beam was invisible to most species but would appear as a blinding flare to Kethvar visual systems. The alien hunter never saw the attack coming. The concentrated light struck his optical sensors directly, causing temporary blindness and disorientation. As he stumbled backward, hands clutching his face, Marcus moved in with silent efficiency. The Kethvar's communication device never had a chance to send an alert. Marcus disabled it first, then used the hunter's own equipment to secure him. The entire encounter lasted less than 30 seconds and produced no sounds that would alert the other members of the hunting party. Marcus studied the captured equipment with interest. The Kethvar technology was impressive but predictable, following design patterns he'd analyzed from previous encounters. More importantly, the communication system was now his to control. He activated the device and began monitoring the hunting party's internal communications. Esikatar was growing impatient with the lack of progress, and the other hunters were beginning to question whether their prey had somehow escaped the cave system entirely. Corvel, report status. Esikatar's voice crackled through the communicator. Marcus keyed the device, altering his voice to match the captured hunter's vocal patterns. Position secure. No movement detected. Maintain watch. The human must emerge eventually. Understood. Marcus smiled as he shut off the communication. The hunting party still believed they were in control of the situation, unaware that their prey had already begun dismantling their operation from within. He secured the unconscious hunter and moved toward the next observation post. The night was still young, and there were several more Kethvar to deal with before he could proceed to the final phase of his plan. The second hunter proved more challenging. Located on higher ground with better visibility, he would be harder to approach without detection. Marcus spent additional time studying the position, looking for weaknesses in the alien's defensive setup. The solution came from an unexpected source. Xerion Prime's diverse ecosystem included several species of large, nocturnal flying creatures that the Kethvar had disturbed with their presence. These creatures were naturally territorial and had been circling the hunters' positions with increasing agitation. Marcus used a simple sonic device to mimic the creatures' distress calls, amplifying them through the forest's natural acoustics. Within minutes, a swarm of the flying beasts descended on the second observation post, attacking what they perceived as an invasion of their territory. In the chaos that followed, with the Kethvar hunter firing wildly at the attacking creatures while trying to maintain his position, Marcus was able to approach undetected. A single precise strike with an improvised weapon disabled the alien before he could call for help. 2 down, 8 to go. As the night progressed, Marcus systematically eliminated each observation post using different methods for each encounter. He turned the hunter's own equipment against them, exploited the local ecosystem's hostility to their presence, and used the terrain itself as a weapon. Each captured hunter provided additional intelligence about Kethvar tactics and technology. Marcus learned about their command structure, their backup plans, and, most importantly, their growing fear as their companions stopped responding to communications. By dawn, only Esikatar and 2 of his most experienced hunters remained active. They had abandoned their observation posts and regrouped at the base camp, finally realizing that something had gone terribly wrong with their hunt. "This is impossible," one of the remaining hunters whispered as they studied their monitoring equipment. "Prey does not hunt the hunters. It is not the natural order." Esikatar's scales had darkened to almost black, a sign of extreme stress among his species. "The human is more dangerous than we anticipated. Perhaps we should consider retreat." "Retreat," the other hunter snarled. "The Kethvar do not retreat from prey." Marcus listened to their conversation from his new position overlooking their camp. The psychological pressure was working exactly as he'd planned. The hunting party was fracturing under stress, their confidence shattered by an opponent who refused to behave like traditional prey. It was time for the final confrontation, but not in the way the Kethvar expected. Marcus had one more surprise prepared. one that would ensure this hunting party never threatened another human again. The morning sun cast long shadows across the HFY base camp as Marcus observed the remaining hunters from his concealed position. Sneered paced nervously while his two companions attempted to re-establish contact with their missing pack members. Their confident predator behavior had been replaced by the kind of paranoid alertness usually exhibited by prey. Marcus had spent the night positioning equipment around their camp, using components salvaged from the captured hunters and natural materials from the planet's ecosystem. The HFY were now surrounded by a carefully orchestrated trap that would activate when he chose to spring it. But, first, he needed to deliver a message. Using the communication system he'd appropriated, Marcus patched into their command frequency. When he spoke, his voice emerged from every comm device in their camp simultaneously, creating a disorienting echo effect. "Good morning, HFY." The three hunters spun around, weapons raised, searching for the source of the transmission. They found nothing but empty forest surrounding their position. "Impossible," HFY breathed. "The human should be trapped in the caves." "I haven't been in the caves for over 12 hours, Marcus replied through their speakers. "I've been hunting." "Where are our companions?" one of the hunters demanded. "Safe," Marcus said. "Unlike what you would have done with me, I don't kill for sport." "They're unconscious and secured, but alive." HFY's eyes narrowed as he studied the treeline around their camp. "Show yourself, human. Face us with honor." Marcus laughed, the sound echoing from multiple directions. "Honor? From creatures who hunt defenseless civilians for entertainment? I don't think you understand what that word means." "We are predators," HFY snarled. "It is the natural order." "No," Marcus replied, his voice becoming deadly serious. "You're bullies who've never faced real opposition. There's a difference." The communication fell silent for several minutes as the trapped hunters considered their situation. Marcus used the time to make final preparations, ensuring every component of his trap was positioned correctly. When he spoke again, his tone had changed to something more formal. "Let me tell you a story about humans, HFY. About why we don't make good prey." "We do not wish to hear human stories," one of the companions protested. "You'll want to hear this one," Marcus continued. 50,000 years ago, my species lived in small groups on a world full of creatures bigger, stronger, and faster than us. Saber-toothed cats, direwolves, cave bears, all of them were better predators than early humans. Despite themselves, the HFY found themselves listening. The story was being broadcast directly through their communication implants, making it impossible to ignore. "But humans had something those predators didn't," Marcus went on. "We learned. We adapted. We remembered. When a saber-tooth killed one of us, the rest of us studied how it hunted. We found its weaknesses. We made tools specifically designed to kill saber-toothed cats." HFY shifted uncomfortably. "What is your point, human?" "My point is that those predators are all extinct now," Marcus said. "Every single species that saw humans as easy prey is gone. We outlasted them all, not because we were stronger, but because we were smarter." The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Around the camp, small sounds began to emerge from the forest, the activation of Marcus's carefully positioned devices. "You've been treating humans like we're just another prey species," Marcus continued. "But we're not. We're the species that turned every predator on our home world into an evolutionary dead end. And now we're in space, meeting new predators." "You threaten us?" HFY asked, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "I'm explaining why your hunting traditions are about to end," Marcus replied. "Every HFY hunting party that targets humans provides us with more data about your species. Your tactics, your technology, your psychology, we learn from every encounter." One of the companions noticed movement in the trees around them. "HFY, we are surrounded." "Not by me," Marcus said. "By the consequences of your actions." The first device activated with a soft electronic hum. It was a sonic disruptor, calibrated to the frequency that caused disorientation in HFY nervous systems. The hunting party immediately began showing signs of distress, their movements becoming unsteady. "What is this?" Sekatar demanded. "Every piece of equipment your people brought to hunt me has been repurposed," Marcus explained. "Your own weapons, turned against you. Your own technology, serving my purposes instead of yours." A second device came online, this one projecting holographic images of the missing hunting party members. The unconscious Kethvar appeared to be suspended in containment fields, though they were actually safely secured in a hidden location several kilometers away. "You see your companions," Marcus said. "They're alive, but their fate depends on your choices in the next few minutes." "What do you want?" Sekatar asked, his voice strained by the sonic interference. "I want you to understand something," Marcus replied. "This isn't a hunt anymore. This is a lesson." The third device was the most sophisticated, a holographic projector that created the illusion of Marcus himself standing in the center of their camp. The image was perfect in every detail, down to the slight smile on his face. "The lesson is simple," the projection said, speaking with Marcus's voice while the real human remained hidden in the forest. "Humans don't just fight back when threatened. We ensure the threat never appears again." Sekatar fired his energy rifle at the hologram, but the beam passed harmlessly through the projection. His companions did the same, their panic growing as they realized they were fighting an illusion. "I could kill all three of you right now," Marcus continued. "Your disorientation leaves you defenseless, and I have enough firepower positioned around this camp to level several city blocks." The hunters looked around desperately, finally, seeing the carefully concealed weapons emplacements that Marcus had constructed using their own equipment and Zirian Prime's natural resources. "But I'm not going to kill you," Marcus said, and his projection smiled wider. "Because dead hunters can't deliver messages." "Messages?" Sekatar whispered. "You're going to return to your home world," Marcus explained. "You're going to tell every Kethvar hunting party exactly what happened here. You're going to explain how a single human turned your pack of experienced hunters into helpless prey." The sonic disruptor powered down, allowing the hunters to regain their equilibrium. They remained motionless, however, acutely aware of the weapons still trained on their position. "More importantly," Marcus continued, "you're going to spread the word that humans are no longer acceptable targets. Any Kethvar who hunts a human will face the same fate as your pack." "The Kethvar Council will never accept such demands," one of the companions protested. "They will when they see the evidence," Marcus replied. The holographic projection gestured, and new images appeared around the camp, detailed recordings of every encounter Marcus had prepared for this moment. "Complete tactical breakdowns of your hunting methods," Marcus explained. "Psychological profiles of Kethvar behavior under stress. Technical specifications of all your equipment. Everything needed to turn future hunting parties into prey instead of predators." Sekatar stared at the data displays with growing horror. "You have been planning this." 4 months, Marcus confirmed. "Ever since your pack first threatened those colonists on Kepler 442b. Every human you've hunted has added to our knowledge base. Every hunting party that's gone missing has provided us with new intelligence." The projection walked closer to Sekatar, its movements perfectly mimicking human body language. "We don't hunt the same prey twice because we don't need to. Once we've learned how to kill something, it stays dead." "What about our companions?" Sekatar asked. "They'll be released unharmed once you've departed the system," Marcus replied. "But they'll be tagged with quantum markers that will allow us to track them anywhere in the galaxy. If any of them participate in hunting humans again, the response will be immediate and permanent." The hunters exchanged glances, finally, understanding the scope of what they'd encountered. This wasn't just one human fighting back, it was an entire species declaring war on their hunting traditions. "You have 1 hour to reach your ship and leave this system," Marcus announced. "The tracking devices I've placed on your vessel will ensure you go directly home. Any deviation from that course will result in your immediate destruction." To emphasize the point, the weapons emplacements around the camp powered up, their targeting systems locking onto each hunter with audible confirmation tones. "This is not possible," Sekatar said, but his voice lacked conviction. "The Kethvar are the galaxy's apex predators." "Were," Marcus corrected. You were apex predators when you only hunted species that didn't fight back. Now you've encountered one that does. The holographic projection began to fade, but Marcus's voice remained clear through their communication systems. Remember this moment, Esikatar. Remember how it felt to be prey instead of predator. And remember that every human in the galaxy now knows exactly how to recreate this experience. As the projection disappeared entirely, the three hunters found themselves alone in the camp with only the electronic hum of weapons systems for company. They moved quickly to gather their essential equipment, abandoning anything that wasn't necessary for their retreat. "What will we tell the council?" one of the companions asked as they prepared to leave. "The truth," Esikatar replied grimly. "That we encountered a species that hunts the hunters." Marcus watched from his concealed position as the Kethvar ship lifted off from Zirian Prime's surface. His tracking systems confirmed their departure vector was aimed directly at their home system, just as he demanded. As the ship disappeared into the upper atmosphere, Marcus activated a final transmission that would follow them home. It contained detailed files on human military capabilities, strategic doctrine, and, most importantly, a complete psychological profile of how humans responded to existential threats. The message was simple but effective: humanity's transition from prey to predator was complete. Any species that continued to see humans as victims would discover exactly what had happened to Earth's original apex predators. Marcus began dismantling his equipment, knowing that word of this encounter would spread throughout the galaxy's hunting communities within weeks. Some species would heed the warning and leave humans alone. Others would try to test humanity's resolve. Those that chose to test would learn the same lesson the Kethvar had just received. Humans didn't just survive encounters with predators, they ensured those predators never threatened anyone again. As he prepared to leave Zirian Prime, Marcus allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The hunt was over, but not in the way the Kethvar had expected. For the first time in galactic history, a prey species had turned the tables completely, transforming hunters into the hunted. The message was clear: humanity had arrived in the galaxy, and the old rules no longer applied. Any species that wanted to hunt humans would discover that their intended prey had evolved beyond the predator-prey relationship entirely. They had become something new, a species that specialized in hunting the hunters themselves. The stars held many predators, but now they also held something those predators had never encountered before: a species that learned from every attack, adapted to every threat, and ensured that those who chose violence against humanity would never get a second chance. Marcus smiled as his ship lifted off from the planet's surface. The Kethvar thought they had been hunting prey, but they had actually been teaching humanity how to become the galaxy's true apex predator. The lesson was complete, and the word would spread: humans don't hunt the same prey twice, because once humanity learns how to kill something, it stays dead.